Good afternoon again. It sounds very trite to say our next speaker needs no introduction, but because I know half of you signed up because of this speaker, I know that's true. Graham Hancock is the man that really got me going in this whole alternative history field. I'd had some thoughts about it, read some books about it, but when I read Fingerprints of the Gods, it really struck me that there was something very important going on here. And I think Graham has done more than any other individual to really get this movement on the ground. So will you please give a warm welcome to Graham Hancock.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You know, there's so much noise in this world that we've created, so much beaming in on us from all directions. Let's just start with one moment of silence, 1 minute of silence, where we go inward and think of what an incredible miracle it is that we're here at all on this beautiful planet. Just 1 minute of silence. Thank you. A conference on precession and ancient knowledge. As many of you know, as a journalist, I have been following and focused on the issue of a lost civilization for a very long time. I've been privileged and fortunate enough to spend a great part of my life working on that mystery and trying to make sense of it. And I've spoken about what I believe is the case for a lost civilization here at CPAC before. And all of the technical evidence and the ancient maps and the mysterious myths and all of that body of information you will find in Fingerprints of the Gods and in Heaven's Mirror. What has come to concern me more and more down the years is less proving my case and less the technological achievements of a lost civilization. I believe if we're looking for the wisdom of the ancients, then fundamentally we are concerned with a spiritual mystery. And it's what the ancients understood about spirit and how that might help to rescue us today from the dilemma we find ourselves in a society that is totally focused on the material realm that I would like to address myself today. And depending on the reference frame from which you come, there will be some things I'm saying today that I believe some people may find profoundly upsetting. I apologize in advance. I'm the messenger, not the message. And I feel that these things need to be said. And if... Anyway, I'm in the business of upsetting people. So I hope you'll forgive me if I touch any individual sensitivities. I'm coming from a good place, and I mean well with what I'm going to try to bring to you here. What happens to us when we die? This is, I believe, a question that every single person in this room must have asked themselves, and probably more than once. I mean, we get on with our busy lives, but ultimately, as we come to the end of our days and live out our life on this planet, we do wonder, what happens next? Is this the end, or is this the beginning of the next great adventure? And the truth is, we may have opinions, we may have beliefs on this matter, but we do not have a whole lot of facts which are beyond dispute. I think that any reasonable person must say we are dealing with a mystery here when we come to the culmination of our lives. What happens next, or what does not happen next? I think that's a reasonable position to say we have a mystery and an unsolved problem. Of course, there are some people who know the answer already. Like this gentleman, Professor Richard Dawkins, until recently the professor of the public understanding of science at Oxford University. What an Orwellian title, and how unfortunate that the public's understanding of science should be channeled through such a narrow-minded man. So the interviewer is already asking the leading question, how do you prepare for death in a world where there isn't a God? And Dawkins, one thing he says, who can disagree with, that we should live our life to the full. I cannot disagree with that. But when he goes on to say we should live our life to the full because there is nothing after it, that's not a statement of scientific fact. That's a statement of Richard Dawkins' own personal, dark, and miserable religious belief. And he is, in a sense, the high priest of nihilism in our society, who uses his authority and his eloquent tongue to persuade others that he's already got it all clear. There is nothing, there is no mystery. We are just accidents of biology and chemistry with no transcendent purpose whatsoever. And in this way, I believe that he has misled millions of people around the world, because he does present it as fact, not as opinion. So this mystery of death, I think this is a very profound medieval image where we see the woman as a child, as a young woman in the flower of life, as an old woman, and above her the figure of death holding the sands of time. It haunts all our waking moments, even though it may just be the smallest shadow in the corner. Well, here's the legal definition, or a widely used legal definition of death, that it's the complete cessation of brain function as evidenced by absence of brainwave activity on an electroencephalogram. The problem I have with that definition is that I don't believe that we are our brains. I think we are our consciousness. It is the consciousness of the individual that is the essence of the person. And actually, consciousness is a mystery. We do know that the brain is involved with consciousness. You can affect consciousness, and it's been done so scientifically by removing certain areas of the brain. It definitely does affect consciousness. There's no doubt about it. But it's unclear exactly how this effect on consciousness works. Scientists call it, at least those who are honest, the big problem. How does this few pounds of jelly inside our skulls transmute emotions, love, a beautiful sunset, a symphony, into something deep and meaningful to us? And up to this day, science does not have an answer to that problem. It's truly a deep mystery for science. But nevertheless, there is a reference frame within science. Our science is based on materialism, and materialism in the sense that everything is to be reduced to matter, that there is nothing other than the matter of which we are made. This is the reference frame from which Western science works, and therefore Western science, by default, without really thinking it through, tends to use this model of consciousness. That consciousness is made or generated by the brain the way that a factory makes cars. If that is your reference frame, it is actually impossible to believe in life after death, of any kind of conscious survival of death, because your consciousness was an ephemeral byproduct of brain activity, and when your brain is dead, then your consciousness is dead too. That's rather like going in and smashing up the factory. It's not going to make cars anymore. So for most scientists who have that reference frame without ever examining it, it's an absurdity to suggest that there might be conscious survival of death. They regard it as utterly ridiculous and a priori impossible. But there is another model of consciousness, and all the measurements of the brain activity that scientists have used to support this reference frame actually works just as well in the other. And that is that the relationship of consciousness to the brain is more like the relationship of a TV signal to a TV set. So we know that we can take a brick, and it might be a tremendously good idea, and throw it through our TV screen and destroy that monstrous instrument utterly, but the signal will still be there. And other receivers could still pick it up. That it's being manifested through the TV set, but it is not, and it cannot be reduced to the TV set. And actually, this is the paradigm of all ancient spiritual traditions, that we incarnate in these bodies to undergo a learning experience here on planet Earth. That our consciousness is not generated by our brains, that the brains are the interface between spirit and matter, through which consciousness manifests in this realm. And that cannot be ruled out. That relationship of consciousness to the brain cannot be ruled out by any scientific findings presently available. So I do think that really, if you're going to go gambling with this, that it's a mystery, and that life after death or not, I would say the reasonable position is a 50-50 shot. You just can't take it further than that, except that there's the entire testimony of ancient spiritual traditions, and there are all sorts of anomalous experiences, such as out-of-body experiences, which suggest that consciousness can move free of the body, such as near-death experiences, such as reincarnation. Ian Stevenson's work from the University of Virginia. Ultimately, he came to the conclusion that the only way he could explain these accurate memories that children were having of past lives was that they had indeed had past lives and had incarnated again. And once we take all of that loose anecdotal evidence together, I would actually say it's at least 51 in favor of some kind of conscious survival of death, and 49 that there's just nothing after death at all. But really, if we want to learn about this subject and learn something useful and nourishing, scientists are the last people to whom we should turn. Especially if they are deeply focused in the material paradigm. They are pygmies when it comes to matter of spirit, midgets. And how dare they foist their views on us as though they are facts? We should turn to the giants in this mystery, such as the ancient Egyptians, who put their best minds to work for 3,000 years on nothing else than this. What happens to us after we die? And who came to very clear conclusions that I believe were the result of direct experience, not of fantasy, and which are expressed in the ancient Egyptian artistic and symbolic system in beautiful and majestic works of art. My wife Santha took this photograph in the temple of Abydos in Upper Egypt, and here we see the goddess Isis feeding immortal life. Everyone's familiar with the symbol of the Ankh to Pharaoh Seti I. And the ancient Egyptian religious system that taught us how to live in this life so that we might prepare for the afterlife was very much associated with the god Osiris, who was a divine king of Egypt in the legendary first time, Zep Tepi. And I'm not going to go into the details here, but Robert Bauval and I, working with the astronomy of the Giza Plateau, have made the case that the first time is astronomically mapped on the Giza Plateau, and it falls around the spring equinox in 10,500 BC, when Leo rises in the east in direct line with the gaze of the Sphinx at precisely the moment that Orion is crossing the meridian in the pattern of the three pyramids on the ground. Draco is also involved in this story. There's a there's a curious way, using this astronomical precessional symbolism, in which ancient Egypt, I think we're losing just a little bit of the slide there at the right, in which ancient Egypt and its mysterious past seems to reach out to us. And this is that the skies have moved halfway round the precessional clock since the first time. Then it was Leo that was rising in the east and Aquarius that was setting in the west. Then Orion was at the lowest point in his precessional journey, and Draco was at the highest point in his precessional journey. As we come round 12,500 years, halfway round the precessional clock, we come to a time when it is Aquarius that is rising in the east and Leo that is setting in the west, when Orion is at the highest point in its precessional journey and Draco is at the lowest point in its precessional journey. And I can't help feeling that the people of those times are reaching out through symbolism to our time. You know, we do not understand the mystery of time very well either. There are interconnections and spirals and knots in time which lock different epochs together. And I sense strongly that there is a lock between our epoch and the epoch that the ancient Egyptians called the first time. And the story of Osiris is concerned with immortality. He's murdered, he's cut into pieces, he is reassembled by the goddess Isis, and she takes the form of a swallow or of a kite, and she hovers over his phallus, and she receives the seed of the divine child, Horus. And I would like to read for 2 minutes from Normandie Ellis's translation of the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead. She's a poet as well as an Egyptologist, concerning this scene, and hopefully to share with you the power of the ideas that are involved here. I stand before the masters who witnessed the creation, who were with Ra that morning the sun rolled into being, who were with Osiris in the grave as he gathered himself together and burst from the tomb, white with heat, a light and shining God. Hail Thoth, architect of truth, give me words of power that I may recall my years and weave together my history. Hail Thoth, architect of truth, give me words of power that I may form the characters of my own evolution. I stand before the masters who witnessed the generation, who were the authors of their own forms, who rolled into being, who walked the dark, circuitous passageways of their own becoming, who saw with their own eyes their destinies and the shapes of things to come. I stand before the masters who witnessed the working of magic, who were with Isis the evening she became the swallow, and her lamentations filled the air, who were with her as she shook down her black hair and veiled the god's transformation in secret, who witnessed the conception of the divine child, though his coming was yet unrevealed. Hail Thoth, architect of truth, give me words of power that when I speak the life of a man, I may give his story meaning. I stand before the masters who know the histories of the dead, who decide what tales to hear again, who judge the books of lives as either full or empty, who are themselves authors of truth. And they are Isis and Osiris, the divine intelligences. And when the story is written and the end is good and the soul of a man is perfected, with a shout they lift him into heaven. Hail Thoth, architect of truth, give me words of power that I may complete my story and begin life anew. I stand before the masters who witnessed the transformation of the body of a man into the body in spirit, who were witnesses to the resurrection when the corpse of Osiris entered the mountain and the soul of Osiris walked out shining. He gathered his heel and his leg. He gathered his arm and his backbones. He knitted himself together in secret. He came forth from death, a shining thing, his face white with heat. There's power in those ancient ideas, such power. If you want to read them in depth, the whole sacred literature of ancient Egypt is available to us in